time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand. With your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
Welcome back to another round of Brandy. The news actually for this episode is actually our episode topic, which is talking about Netflix making a big move into the experience economy with their new Netflix house.
Which you've known about for a while. It wasn't like it was news to me because when I saw it pop up, I'm like, wait, what? But you're like, oh yeah, I've known, this has been in the works for a number of years, obviously, but you were kind of tracking that.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was a couple, maybe 2 years ago when they first started going, hey, we're going to get these. They pretty much got giant warehouses and then they're featuring these different sets and experiences within them.
Rooms and almost I saw like a kind of animated thing of like a zoom in tour, and it looked basically at first like it was going to be, like they're different theaters, because one of the ones that go into is a Netflix theater, right? But then and it was themed to one of their IPs. I forget which one.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, then it shows like if for the Wednesday Addams franchise for that series, they've got like Wednesday's dorm room with the iconic windowing, and there's a lot of different IPs that Netflix has rights to. And so the idea of creating these little experience rooms, obviously Stranger Things, Squid Games, as well as like merch, like that would be like merch central for all things Stranger Things or Squid Game, whatever it is you're into.
What's interesting about it is that they've created these little miniature lands within these giant warehouses, and they do lean into their IP, which then gives them automatic theme for each of those, which I think is brilliant. And I'm curious because right now, so you're on the same page as Scott and I, is that they opened their initial one in Philadelphia, and that has the Wednesday themed land, and then it's like an anime one, I'm not familiar with it, has some pirate guy or something, and that's essentially an escape room where
that's One Piece, which is kind of a big thing.
And so the Philadelphia location, which is the initial kind of pilot, will have that. It also has the indoor theater, which is called Netflix Tudum. I think I'm saying that right, Tudum. And I looked that up, and essentially Tudum under Netflix, if you go on their website, there's a whole nother website called Netflix Tudum. I don't feel like I'm saying that right. But then it's essentially their fandom. So they created their own little area where you get all the insider scoops. Hey, is this next season approved? When is this dropping? Who's playing this? So it's kind of smart that they did that it's essentially like fandom. But
that is interesting. I didn't know they had that. I should look into it.
And so that's why the theater was called that, because I was like, what the heck is Tudum?
Yeah.
And then their next location in Dallas, I think that's going to be the heavy hitter, because that one actually has Stranger Things.
Yeah,
but
there is Stranger, like for instance, we were looking at the models of both, and like there's Stranger Things and Squid Games at both locations. But like for instance, the one at I think it was in Dallas has not only the red light green light game that you could play with that life size female doll.
That'd be awesome,
twisting head, which is weird. But they also have a room which is all the intricate multicolored staircases going up and down and everything else, so you can spend time walking around in that area as well.
Yeah, because the Squid Games is called Survive the Trials, play 5 ruthless games, battle your competition, try to win. And then Stranger Things is Escape the Dark. Your mission, find 3 missing Hawkins residents before it's too late. So they kind of have these little games set up, and it'll be interesting because then they do have the food, they have the merchandise, they have all these other things that they're going to probably just destroy on pricing.
They didn't talk about even pricing about getting in, or is it one of those things that it's open, right?
And you have to buy tickets.
You have to buy tickets even to get into the house, right? Which at first you'd be like, why would they do that? But I mean, let's be honest. To me, and I know when we first came across it, we were talking about it, and there was a little bit of you and I were on a different side of the aisle. You felt like they weren't doing enough for the experience, and I thought, well, you're like, well, just making a themed room isn't that really experiential? But I see this almost as a microcosm, very similar to the way Disneyland is. You pay an entrance fee. You get in, you've got themed lands or themed stores. You've got you go to, ride the Winnie the Pooh ride because you're a huge Winnie the Pooh fan. You walk out, there's a Winnie the Pooh themed, merch area. You can go grab something that's Winnie the Pooh themed food wise and buy shirts and do all this other stuff and just live out your fandom of that whatever it is. Maybe it's Pirates of the Caribbean, maybe it's Star Tours, maybe whatever. And obviously now they have, for every Star Wars fan, you're living that in Disneyland. But you buy the food, you buy all these things that are themed, and it works.
Immersive experiences are definitely the future of a lot of things. Just like we talked about with Louis Vuitton and all these other luxury brands creating experiences of them going, okay, luxury plus this immersive experience where you get to go enjoy the product design, the product detail, which even when you look at Apple stores were designed like that. Like when you walk into an Apple store, it's like walking inside of a Apple product. Like everything is, even the radius of the corners, everything is mimicking and echoing the Apple kind of design language, which I was just surprised when I first heard Netflix was doing this. I thought that they were going to copy essentially what this art installment called Meow Wolf, which started in Santa Fe and now is like, I think they have 7 or 8 locations. And there are these extremely immersive art installments where one of the locations, and they change per location. One was like a supermarket where you walk in and they made up all these fake brands, fake packaging and everything. It looks eerie when you walk in. And then randomly you'll go up to like, I think it's like one of the beverage refrigerators, and you open it, and then that's the entrance where then you go down and you enter this whole art, and then everything's changing. And then like the themes of the other ones change as well. And I thought they were going to do something like that.
Is the artwork related, in this case, the artwork related to a supermarket? Or is it just like,
no,
it's a creative
entrance
way to welcome them into another installment of this?
It's just completely, everything's off the wall. It's like whimsical and just, it's like if you gave a blank canvas to an artist and go, okay, create an immersive experience, and wherever it goes, wherever it leads you, it's like probably, there's probably acid involved in the creation of it.
LSD.
It's very like, where is this going?
Oh, that's funny.
And
so that's where you thought Netflix was going with this.
Which, granted, they do have Stranger Things, which is a great universe. They could have leaned into that more, but I guess they do have to make it gamified to a certain degree. But that's the problem with it, is that if you have these games, just like an escape room, how many times is someone going to do an escape room versus Disneyland? How many times is someone going to ride a ride? I think there's a difference there where there's a thrill to a ride versus walking in and out of the dorm room. And
so you don't see a lot of repeat business, is what you're saying with these.
I don't know. I feel like that could lose its charm. But granted, like in Disneyland, it's fun to hang out in Star Wars Land because of all the detail and of all the high caliber.
I feel like same thing that like Netflix is doing, almost like a microcosm of Disney and Universal Studios. They both have theme parks. There's obviously out in Florida, there's Universal World and Disney World and all these things. But let's just talk theme park, right?
Yeah.
Universal Studios did that with a bigger area that was all Simpsons themed, and they went into Nintendo, like Super Mario themed, and they have all these little micro themes, right? And these theme parks, Hogwarts, right? If you're a Harry Potter fan, you go to Universal Studios theme park, and you're walking through Dumbledore's office, and you're geeking out, and you're going and shopping for a wand and robes and drinking butterbeer. I wouldn't be surprised if this became a big success for them, if they would actually, could you imagine if they did a Netflix land where literally you had, like you said, what if you had an entire zone of a theme park dedicated to Stranger Things?
Yeah.
What if you had one that was The Witcher, or you had, the Adams, where it was almost walking through a Tim Burton-esque type of, theme park? That's pretty much the recipe that has made Disneyland so successful, utilizing its rides, its movie enterprises.
Well, and this is the same issue. So the same thing, how Apple is set up in technology and like consumer technology, and Google, Meta, all of these brands that were digital now trying to become products. They're going the opposite way that Apple went, where Apple is going the opposite, where Apple is going from product world to service and digital. And they've successfully been able to transition, while these other companies have struggled to go upstream to product. That's why Google has had to buy like digital or real products like Nest and stuff. I think the same thing happens with Disney, is that Disneyland, that was the experience, was the core of it. That's why Disneyland has a vibe. Just Disneyland itself is a theme versus Netflix. Netflix doesn't have a vibe. If you thought of a Disneyland hotel, you know what that would be like. If you thought of like a Netflix hotel, you'd be like, okay, that'd be, I guess, just a bunch of it's like Universal Studios. Universal doesn't have the same power that Disneyland has, in my mind, because Disneyland is its own thing. it's like opposite, where Disneyland went from experience to IP, and now you have these other companies that they've created a slew of content, and now they're trying to make that into experiences. Just like Meow Wolf, like I just mentioned, they have their own theme where when you go to Meow Wolf, you know it's going to be off the wall and crazy and very just like, like there's an opposite kind of approach where, okay, now, they have whatever seasons of Stranger Things, they have a ton of IP to pull from, but now bringing that into the experiential realm, that's a whole nother thing. I think there's this, it's a different type of like, it's possible, but I think there's like, it's not as easy as it may sound. That's why Universal and stuff doesn't even hold a light to what Disneyland does.
Following in the shadow of Walt, following in the shadow of the greatness of Disneyland, because again, there's a reason, there are how many international, Disneyland parks are there?
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting about it is that Disneyland, like all of their lands are built off of not something that wasn't based off seasons, which is so weird. Even Star Wars, all the iconic things in Star Wars land, it's not based off of the Star Wars shows. It's all based off of the movies that, there may have been a handful of movies or even the other lands, like Indiana Jones and stuff. There are different movies, but it was never based off of like television shows.
Well, yeah, with Disneyland, it's like you had, you had the Indiana Jones ride, right, which was based off a film franchise first, but they didn't just go, hey, this is the Temple of Doom ride. No, they made a new narrative, right? So it was different. But then you look at the entire film franchise that birthed off of a pirate ride that Walt designed. So you started with Pirates of the Caribbean, and I think they're making number 7 now. I guess I don't know. They're and that's a hugely popular franchise birthed off of that, and I know they tried to do it with Haunted Mansion and stuff, but that just didn't really fare well.
You're going to see this more and more where these brands are going to be able to then sprout these either pop-up experiences or just things like this.
Well, there's another one. We just saw
taking a warehouse.
Dior just launched one. They just announced one.
They had a whole, which I don't know if that was more marketing versus an actual pop-up experience, or they were framing their products into this, into the world of Dior and this whole immersive thing, which I'm like, okay, that's smart. You're starting to frame something that way, and they could be testing things that way. And this kind of does lead to going, okay, what are these other brands going to do who do have tons of IP, like Amazon that's sitting on MGM and 007 and all these like really, really classic IP. What's going to be their move?
You brought up a good point just now too. It's like if you think about a brand that is going to open up an experiential based location, a storefront, okay, for an experience, and you bring in the people that are going to go in there. It's not just anybody off the street. They're going to be their audience, that brand's audience, right? So what a great way to almost test pilot new product, let's say Dior, maybe it's new fragrances, maybe it's new things that fans are going to sample and either buy, and so you're going, man, that thing's flying off the shelf now, as opposed to them trying to put that new potential product on all their shelves across all their distribution channels to see how the public likes it, right? Or you can do test markets. So we're going to send it to these 5 locations, right? Yeah, but what if you just dropped it in your one location that all the super fans come to?
Yeah, and I bet they'll do with Netflix House, they'll probably do exclusive merchandise you can get at those special shops. I'm not completely sold on it. I think it makes sense, but I feel like that it's like Tesla doing the interesting little gas station or whatever you call it.
What's the diner?
The diner. And they have movie theater screens, and it's all like retro-y, and it's cool. Like thematically, it's awesome, and it matches the Tesla aesthetic and all that.
I was down in
and
Hollywood
it's interesting.
a couple weeks ago, and we passed by on Sunset, and there's one right there. And I saw it, and I was like, as I was driving by, I wasn't expecting it. I was looking to turn, following directions, waiting to turn, and I'm like, oh, what is that? And then I pieced together. Like I saw the Tesla emblems, but there was a couple people on the rooftop bar area. There was I saw it was like there were people walking in, so it was clearly getting traction. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what's interesting about it is that even at Tesla, it's like someone who's driving either a Tesla or Cybertruck, okay, they enjoy the Blade Runner aesthetic. They enjoy like just these different things that Tesla is lifestyle-wise. And so then the theme of Tesla is able to take on that experience and transform something into this, because I think it was an old building that he bought. It was like 5 years ago when they bought that thing. Because I remember seeing the drafting plans for it and being like, man, what is he doing? But it's an interesting idea. Like, but what other car, like, I guess you could have, Mercedes or someone do a gas station, or like they're doing that collaboration with Starbucks where they're going to have charging ports at Starbucks and they're going to be all Mercedes out and look nice and look branded like that.
Yeah.
But that is a certain vibe that matches the car versus Tesla can branch into this Blade Runner aesthetic and that kind of like futurism.
Yeah. That's cool.
But I'm curious to see what happens with more of these. Like Hulu at least has the gateway with Disney. If they are to go, okay, Hulu's like killing it on the Predator front or whatever it is, and they can start rolling out things on like more mature content, which they could be because they're doing the Villains Land and all of that. They may be starting to air more that way. But I think it's like what we've been talking about. Is like you do have these themes, you have experiences, and these brands are going to be able to start really unlocking that and looking at going, okay, how do we actually start unboxing how these little like narratives and framing and these little lifestyles be able to then attach to people. The
one smart thing I think that Netflix is doing with this is the fact that each location right now, it appears each location is going to be unique.
Yeah.
And that's what I like, is that they're not just carbon copying and they're going to be sprouting up like, In-N-Outs or Starbucks all over the place, each looking slightly different, but serving the same coffee, and I could see for the same reason, that you have diehards that go to like something like a Comic-Con, right? Super fans going to they're taking time off from work. They are getting plane tickets, and they're flying down to, let's say, San Diego and going to a Comic-Con, right? Those people, like, if you have a Squid Games super fan, they're going to go to Dallas and experience Squid Games on one level, and then they're going to fly to the next stop and they're going to experience more Squid Games, but on a completely different level because they're doing things different. It's not the same. And that's the way it appears right now. So even you might have two instances of Stranger Things or Wednesday Addams or The Witcher, whatever. It's going to be, again, different. So that encourages people to actually want to bounce around and say they've been to this one, they've been to that one.
What I'm interested about is why the gaming industry hasn't,
like Sony?
Yeah, or Nintendo. Like, yes, Nintendo has whatever, Nintendo Land, whatever they call it, Mario Land. But even that, it's very lackluster compared to what they could have done.
And it only captures one IP, right? It was pretty much Mario Brothers.
Universe,
imagine if they had a Legends of Zelda.
Yeah. And
like
I'm like,
a Zelda
why,
Land. I mean, the super
why
gamers.
have they not? Which that may be down the road because there is, if you look at...
Could you imagine Call of Duty paintball? Oh my gosh!
But they could. They could easily
fun.
like you start creating all of these
franchise, like a Destiny. Yeah. Like laser tag. Amphitheater that you dropped into, like Destiny style,
or just cool gaming facilities of like massive screens and I don't know. Like I feel like that even the gaming community would resonate even more than content.
Taking a brand or taking your market sector and finding ways you can bring experience. Hypothetical, what if you were to open a bookstore that literally giant rooms where their books were housed, but let's say all of this one type was in this room that is decked out almost like Alice in Wonderland. Or, looks like old ancient, turn of the century London because it's more like Sherlock Holmes vibe and just Victorian. You could have people would wander through the bookstore and just be enchanted by the various environments by which famous literary works have been based out of. And something like that adds an element just rather than walking down aisles and aisles of books, find ways to surprise and delight the consumers as they're engaging with the brand.
Yeah. And I feel like it's like finding those themes and then going, okay, someone's obviously, if they are in that theme, if someone goes to the Stranger Things thing or they're looking at fiction books or fantasy, it's like that is a huge signal of what they're looking for and what's going to really like jazz them up. So it's like, okay, lean into that, give them more of that, and then create more of an experience around that, whether it is decoration, lighting, anything like that. You can really lean into a lot of different things. And it's like we talked about before, it's like the theater of it, of being able to set the stage and the actors and everything, and be able to go, no, this is how it should be. This is like how you lean into that.
The by Disneyland in the downtown Disney, the Rainforest Cafe. It's like you walk in and it's like looks like a rain, and you sit down and there's a periodic thunder showers and there's a few animatronic animals and you just like it's so interesting of an experience to just eat a normal meal, but you're like, Feels like you're in a rainforest.
And people don't get it. And I think Rainforest Cafe is gone and it's replaced by the ESPN Center.
Oh, okay.
But even that, ESPN, another Disney
a sports
IP.
channel. It's a TV channel.
It's a themed thing. That's why they have all the sports running on the outside. When you go inside, there's more sports. It's themed in sports. And just like, then someone goes, oh, how do I apply this to my business? Well, it's like, well, even if you're running a restaurant and you have a bar and you're a sports bar or whatever, it's like that is a theme. People come to you to watch a ball game or whatever, and they get in the certain mode and they're enjoying the theme and they're leaning into it.
Now it brings back one of the comments you made when we first were talking about the House of Netflix, and when you were kind of like, I just don't think they're doing much. Because you're like, why would someone want to go and do that? And I even said, Reilly and I are both huge Seinfeld fans. I was like, dude, it'd be like being able to walk through Jerry's apartment, right? Or to walk and sit down in that diner and go, oh my gosh, right? Because we geek out about it. And you're like, yeah, but it isn't the real one. And I'm like, but it wouldn't matter because it's a replica. It's transporting you to an environment that is a beloved environment for you, you know? And I think that base principle, is walking the actual set.
I'm a very hard sell.
Walking the actual set would even have an even higher value. But what I'm saying though is if it wasn't, I still probably go because it'd be fun.
Yeah,
you know.
But okay. But I think that's the problem is that the replica. It's like looking at a picture of the Mona Lisa and then actually seeing the Mona Lisa. Where the difference there for me, there's intrinsic value in seeing the actual Mona Lisa and going, okay, take your time and look at this and appreciate it versus going, oh, I looked at a picture of a picture. And I think there's a difference there. And that's what I think Disneyland nails so awesome is that everything about Disneyland is intricately masterful. Everything about it. Yes, you're not actually going in a set or something like that, but the pathway, the landscaping, the lighting, the details, everything about it is you're in the artwork. You're not just, and I think there's a difference there where when Netflix does this, it has to be of the highest quality if they're going to try to play this game, or they're just going to be put in the same category as
Chuck E. Cheese.
Universal.
I think that's what you said at one point when I first started being like, what is it like Chuck E. Cheese?
Dave and Buster's.
Or like Dave and Buster's, yeah.
Which I'm like, they have to, or they're just going to be like Knott's Berry Farm or whatever, with someone going out of business, Six Flags. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, that's great, but it's not, that's what Disney does different, is that it's not just about the rides. And I think that's the kicker.
Exactly, but all the more reason why I think having a room that maybe takes a half hour to meander through that is themed after K-pop Demon Hunters or whatever it is, right? if that's your vibe and you're a super fan and you go to this thing and you pay the door cost and you go and you grab some food and then you're able to meander through that. That's the experience.
That could be part of it,
right. I mean, my favorite part of most of the Disneyland isn't the ride themselves. It's the wait queues because I geek out of all the little details because I'm standing there for 2 hours, waiting in line.
You should have people pay you to wait in line for them.
Oh my gosh.
You just wait in line at Disneyland.
Buy my way into the park just to stand in line. Yeah.
But I think overall it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I've always been skeptical of Netflix, so I come from a very pessimistic angle. And I just think that this is great for the experience economy, and we'll see what follows suit with Amazon, with all these other brands out there that do have the potential of creating these incredible experiences.
Dude, Prime could come out with Fallout, a whole land voted to Fallout.
That would be awesome. But why isn't Bethesda doing that on their own? Like, that's a whole, you know how cool that'd be? That would be amazing.
If gaming companies started branding theme parks.
I mean, that to me makes more sense than Netflix House.
Yeah. Or you could just go to Disneyland, go to Frontierland, and pretend you're in Red Dead Redemption. So there you go. Anyway, I think we've rambled off about the House of Netflix, the big red M.
No, it's Netflix House. They can't say House.
Netflix House?
No, it's just Netflix House.
Oh, I thought it was House of Netflix.
No, you're thinking of House of Mouse. But that's all we got for today. Feel free to tune in next week for another round of Brandy.
Brandy.
Until next time, cheers.